Hey guys, Toast here. Conquest is one of the most prominent game modes in Battlefield 1, if not the flagship game mode, and despite it being a popular mode for many Battlefield players throughout the years, it never ceases to amaze me how many players tend to forget most of the important aspects about how to be effective as an attacker. Today's tips are focused on taking flags as opposed to defending them, and are designed to make you a more effective, helpful, and skilled Conquest objective attacker. These tips are in no particular order as I feel they're all important to maximizing your skill in this popular game mode. Frequently in the beginning of Conquest games, the entire team heads straight for the flag closest to their spawn, and then follows in a line to each point in order to get the highest possible personal score early on. While yes, that will get you off to a good start on your personal score, your team as a whole is going to be far better off if you branch off to several different points and capture a few at once. Not only will your team score start out quicker, it also gives your teammates more spawn points early on in order to begin assaulting the enemy team's flags. There are diminishing returns when it comes to how quickly flags are captured based on the number of players on the flag, and realistically you shouldn't need more than a single squad to capture a flag in a respectable amount of time if it isn't being contested. Because of this, only a few of your teammates need to stay back and capture the point closest to your deployment, and the rest of your team should split out to 2 or 3 other points and start capturing them as quickly as possible to give your team a commanding start. While you may not capture all the flags you're trying for before the enemy push gets to one of them, at least you'll still make it so it'll take more time for them to capture the flag since it'll no longer be entirely neutral. The likelihood of you or one of your squad mates making a successful flank and capturing a flag entirely on their own mid-game is not very good. However, a full squad is absolutely capable of holding down an area for long enough to capture a point, especially if they continue to spawn on one another. If you see that one of your squad mates has broken through the enemy lines and is flanking around to a flag or already capturing a flag, spawn on them and help them out, as well as encourage your other squad mates to do the same. A solid flank to one of the enemy team's home flags can be crucial to turning the tide of a game, so the more support you can lend to your squad in this situation, the better. If your squad indicates that they're capturing a point and you're nowhere near it, you can always redeploy to spawn on them. You're likely to do more for your team by being an extra body on a point that needs to be captured than one of 20-something other players that'll inevitably be defending a single point that the enemy happens to be going after. Sure, you may take a death from redeploying, but your kill-death ratio doesn't mean a whole lot in Conquest anyway, and the one death is well worth it if your team captures that point and forces the enemy team to change up their strategy. Just because you're in a vehicle that has massive destructive potential against infantry and other vehicles doesn't mean that you can now neglect the objective. In fact, if you have pretty much any form of tank, you're better equipped than any single infantry player will ever be to capture a conquest point. As the saying attributed to the French Revolution goes, with great power comes great responsibility, which in this particular instance means that the more powerful the vehicle that you're controlling, the more responsibility you have of being a driving force to help your team capture points. Sure, you could sit on a hill and take potshots at the enemies in the distance, and your kill count and ratio will surely reflect that, but ultimately your team and your score will thank you far more for being on a point helping to capture or defend it. With a heavy tank in particular, you're capable of bringing up to 6 bodies total onto a capture point, which is frequently enough to push your team over the threshold to be able to capture an enemy point. In addition to that, with a full heavy tank you have firepower available at all angles, and the ability to take down buildings around you where enemies may be hiding while trying to stop the capture. If you have a tank, use it for attacking objectives. Now this obviously only works on maps where planes are present, but one of the most effective things a team can do, especially early on in a round, is to drop a player or two off at a flag close to the enemy deployment. While I wouldn't recommend dropping at their first capture flag, the second one is a good spot to have a couple players begin to capture while the enemies are still working on their first flag. Like I mentioned earlier, most teams work on one flag at a time at the beginning of a round, so this is an excellent time to give your team a little extra help right from the start. The worst case scenario is that a few enemies are already there and you slow down the capture of their flag even briefly, forcing them to spend more time at the objective and putting them at a slight disadvantage when it comes to moving forward. The best case scenario is that the enemies are slow enough that they can't get to the flag prior to it being captured by you, and you've now provided some additional score for your team as well as a spawn close to the enemy's home flag, which puts them at a major disadvantage right from the start. The early game is your time to set up a dominating position, and this is a great way to go about doing it. When it comes to having multiple players on your team on a point trying to take it over, one of the worst things that you can do is to all cluster together in close proximity to one another. This leaves players on that point very vulnerable to area of effect attacks like various enemy grenades, tank shells, artillery, dynamite, mortars, or any other various type of explosive, incendiary, or gas-related attack that can be slung at you. The last thing you want is for an enemy vehicle, flame trooper, or a few assaults to make quick work of your teammates on a point, and the best way to ensure that this doesn't happen is to maintain your distance from other players while still ensuring that you're within the capture area of the flag. This is especially important for squad mates because if an enemy is attacking you, you want your squad mate to be far enough away that they can either kill the enemy or get to a safe spot where you'll be able to spawn back in on them. Keep your distance, watch your teammates and squad mates' backs, and you'll find that you'll be taking over that point in no time. Now I want to hear some of the things that you think are really important to do or know when attacking objectives in Conquest. Let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more content, please subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Toast, and I'll talk to you soon.